Sparks that I don't remember. Hold and let it shine. Fix and start to fade away. Fix and start to fade away. Fix and start to fade away.
Hello, dear friends of Kabbalah International. We are again with Mario.
How are you, Nacho?
Great, very excited because this is a topic that I am passionate about.
That's great. Passion is very good.
Yes, the superficiality of today's world. Let's start talking and I'll tell you the ideas I have written down.
When we talk about superficiality, we have to contrast it with depth. So when we say someone is superficial, it means that person is not working on the deep aspects. Of course, we should define what deep is, because depth involves addressing the big questions. What have I come to do in this life? What is the meaning of my existence? What is death? What is life? Etc. The questions that fall into the realm of mysticism are the questions of depth. Therefore, those who delve into mysticism are unlikely to stay on the surface because they touch upon these profound topics. Now, superficiality is not opposed to depth. Rather, on the surface, we reveal the profound. When we talk about superficiality in this dialogue, we mean staying on the surface without achieving depth. In other words, we also operate on the surface like everyone else, but there are two ways to operate on the surface, in a superficial manner or in a deep manner. So, when one delves deep, it doesn't stay in the depth, it returns to the surface to operate deeply on the surface. Therefore, when we talk about superficiality, it means not connecting with the profound questions, and only stay on the surface. Sometimes this happens not by intention, but because there is no experience or training on how to go deep. Look, we are so entrenched in this issue of current superficiality that not only are profound matters left untouched, but the analysis and interpretation of profound issues end up being superficial today. For example, let me give you an example of this. There are many studies, for instance, on the Zohar, one of the great books of Kabbalah. How is it studied literally? Because in general, those who analyze the Zohar in the 21st century tend to literalize what the Zohar says when the Zohar is a very profound book, where taking the literal leads to the depth. The problem with staying on the surface is believing that the surface is the reality and the surface is not reality. Everything that happens because it comes from the depth, from the hidden world. Look, a tree is not what you see. That tree is supported by roots that cannot be seen. In other words, the invisible world of the roots of that tree is the depth, and the deeper the roots, the more the tree will grow. What is happening in today's society is that trees without roots are being created. So, what happens? It happens that with no depth of thought, no depth in experience, even the spokespeople, often from spirituality itself, feel like they are selling smoke. It seems like a kind of empty talk where you think, what is happening here? Because there are words without content, and when you listen to them for an hour and end up saying, well, what did I learn? You are left empty. So imagine that words have been stripped of depth, devoid of content. Words are being sold as empty shells to people. Therefore, the problem of today's world's superficiality is quite complicated because language has been emptied of content. Language is being used as a tool in the service of superficiality. People sell an image, sell superficial words, serving individuals who buy superficiality, thinking there is depth, and they also stay in superficiality. Thus, superficial relationships are being created, where emptiness increases because people are not going deeper. So, of course, be careful. This superficiality that we are living in nowadays, of people who spend 4 hours in the shopping mall desperate to buy as if they were going to find the philosopher's stone in a shoe, what is happening here is that we are facing a drama, because the emptiness that we are feeling at that level, modern man, the emptiness that he is feeling, he is not finding answers because he is not going deeper. So the whole system is based on superficial consumption, because there is also an economic system that is taking advantage of superficiality. So we have to be very careful that this superficiality has harmful consequences, because those who do not delve deep feel a void without knowing its function. In other words, superficiality automatically leads me to existential emptiness. So what happens? I don't enter the void because I don't understand how it works. I am on the surface. I redouble the search for meaning on the surface, whereby the person buys 3 pairs of shoes, believing that he or she will find something there. Accumulates matter, does not understand what happens, has 1 cat, 2 cats, 3 cats. The person doesn't understand what's happening. They have a house, a car, and 2 cars. They don't understand what's happening. In a way, the trap of superficiality consists of believing that you will find answers on the surface. Of course the answer is not on the surface. Be careful, because beneath the surface of the sea is the shark.
Of course.
And everyone feels the shark, but what's happening? Everyone feels the shark but stays on the surface. Look, Nacho, superficiality is like when the Titanic was sinking and the orchestra kept playing, knowing everyone that it was sinking. So be careful. Many people know that this is sinking, and the orchestra continues. The orchestra cannot keep playing, knowing that the Titanic is sinking. So superficiality is that as long as I see the orchestra, we keep celebrating. But it is sinking.
Notice the analogy you just made, which is the musicians playing on the surface, and the Titanic sinks.
The Titanic is sinking, so watch out here.
There are several things I would like to mention if you allow me a few seconds. Some things I was reflecting on yesterday while preparing the talk, and others that came to me from what you were saying. First, there is one thing that I find very interesting, which is this, in quotation marks, a statement that superficiality has a function.
Absolutely. Superficiality, if it is in service to depth, is very good.
That is one. The problem is stagnation in superficiality. And then, as a consequence of that stagnation in superficiality, it is not understanding the function of emptiness. Another thing that also interested me, which I saw yesterday, was that sometimes superficiality is confused with fragment. Isn't it? When we know that Abraham Abulafia said that in the fragment we can see the infinite.
Sure, the thing is that we are confusing surface and superficiality, and we have to be careful. What we cannot do is find superficiality on the surface. If we use the surface for depth, the surface is a tool. The surface can be a tool for depth or superficiality. If the surface is used superficially, it is not fulfilling its function because the surface is at the service of depth. That's point 1. The problem is that when people want to go into depth, they encounter existential emptiness. So, the human soul, we live in desperation. Why are people desperate and go to the pharmacy for anxiolytics? Because we do not understand how our soul works. Our soul has to go to the surface to reveal depth, and in doing so it makes the surface an instrument in its service. And it has to go into the void, to find the energy that comes from the infinite as information, and not to encounter the abyss of meaninglessness. At this moment, souls, within modernity, find themselves between 2 enemies, one behind and one in front. That is to say, they move forward and encounter the surface, finding superficiality. They move backward and find themselves in the void, in the abyss. So, souls are in limbo, in a perverse system of flotation, where when they try to move forward they find no answers, and when they try to move backward they find no answers. Kabbalah provides answers both forward and backward. Forward because the surface may not be superficial, and backward because the void is not an abyss. The void has meaning. So, there the soul is completely liberated. Now the soul understands everything. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the millions of souls on this planet, and other planets we do not know, are suffering in a state of limbic flotation, that is, they are in limbo. Because if they are going forward, why am I going forward? What's ahead? Look, let me tell you an example. Recently, there was a person who lived for many years the life of fashion and the jet set in Marbella. Superficiality, but on a large scale, on a grand scale. So many people are in that superficiality. And on the other hand, many people go to India seeking depth and feel empty in the abyss because they find that there they encounter emptiness. But one must understand what the purpose is. So you see souls as lost, as saying, "My God, if I go backward into the void, I find myself in the abyss. I don't want the abyss for myself. So what do? I have fun in the superficial." So, if I find the negativity of the abyss, which is not negative but positive, I go to the superficial, which is negative because I don't find how to reveal depth on the surface. And if it happens the other way around, that is, I'm trapped, Kabbalah proposes a strategy to escape this trap because there's a trap forward and a trap backward.
Of course. Just a couple of reflections that are related to what you were saying. One thing I see intimately connected with today's superficiality is this exaggerated need for immediacy. That's one thing. And then there's another thing that seems like a kind of trap in superficiality. There's this need to mitigate the effects of frustration. In other words, there is a low tolerance for frustration. So, superficiality becomes a wonderful ally to avoid frustration because you never get to the heart of the matter, right?
Absolutely, it's a paradox. In the very short term, all those substitutes, all those replacements for satisfaction lead to deeper dissatisfaction. I mean, you keep buying something for immediate satisfaction, and it leaves you at a level of deeper dissatisfaction. So you eat, and you get hungrier, you eat, and you get hungrier, you eat, and you get hungrier. Therefore, one must be careful because, in my view, that immediate satisfaction accelerates deep dissatisfaction.
Let's keep the listener's appetite. And we continue to a second opportunity.
Let's hope it's a happy dissatisfaction.
Always.
Amen. Shalom to all.